And so out of the deal, I ended up with a brand new $8,000 shower that was not out of my pocket, but unfortunately for the seller, ended up having to be covered, but it all was because we found it during the inspections.
What's going on, good people? Daniel Frankson Realty, and I have the distinct pleasure for this kitchen convo episode to be here with the great Miss Robin Tedder.
You're too kind.
Robin is again another real estate mogul, just doing her thing. She may tell you that she's learned some stuff from me, but truth be told, I've learned a lot by having the opportunity to work with Robin.
Too sweet.
And one of the things that I think you and I, with this particular home that you're in, right, which again, I think you made a fantastic decision with this one.
Thank you.
But just remember in our process, I think the big thing that you and I encountered with this, and you let me know if you agree, was probably a reminder why it's so important to have a home inspection.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like.
I was going to say, it kind of felt like I hit the jackpot with that one.
Yeah.
But, and we'll get into some other things later, but certainly for me, I mean, we'll just call it right out there. Like, you saved me like around $8,000 with that inspection.
I can't even take credit.
You can't take
Craig
credit.
has the inspector for the credit.
That's right.
But
true.
I take my little piece.
Yeah.
I gotta give you and Craig full credit for that. I take credit for the negotiations.
The negotiations. That's what we'll give Daniel credit for because that's what a good real estate agent should do.
Right.
But, this house, I loved it as soon as I walked in, which I know your favorite line is always like, don't fall in love with the property just because,
we gotta take our time.
Take your time.
We fall in love once we're at the closing table and everything is signed, sealed, delivered.
That's right. Yeah. So, you always give me that, that preface. But I walked in here and I absolutely loved the property. And I was like, I think this is like really my next home. And, I was ready. Put
ready
the offer
to go.
in, put it in there, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Get me to the closing table right now. So, going through the process of everything, of course, you have your due diligence period, and you would have to inform me on what those are like nowadays because, it seems like they're getting shorter and shorter. But
different world. So not to cut you, but just to, Robin just said something key, due diligence period. And for those that may not be aware, that some people may call it your inspection period. Your due diligence period is really a time frame, an agreed upon amount of days where the buyer can bring an inspector in to take a look. If they find anything that they consider a deal breaker, or really and truly for any reason at all during the due diligence period, they can terminate without penalty, which means you get back your earnest money, right?
Right.
So we always, work to include that in the deals that we've done together because we always say you're here to get a property, not give money away. Right?
Exactly.
So we had our due diligence period and
so you opt into an inspection during that due diligence period to make sure that you're not just, buying a headache essentially.
Yeah, right.
So, and maybe you want to buy a headache and make it a beautiful thing.
But at least it's a headache.
At least you know,
front.
exactly. So, during the due diligence period on this property, we did the inspection, which shout out to Craig, who's an amazing inspector, very detailed.
I think the best in Atlanta, if I'm being honest.
I agree with that. You might want to put his information in the chat or something. But basically, during that time, he came in, and I still to this day, even the inspector I just had on this place I'm buying up north, didn't do this. Yeah. He ran the water for like an hour or an
hour and a half. Yeah.
And during that time, it showed that there was this really small little leak that was trickling down, which doesn't really seem like it on the surface would be that big of a deal. But the truth is that because of where it was coming from, they actually ended up discovering that it would need to require an entire complete redo of the shower pan, which meant that entire shower in the master bedroom, which I'm in love with, now had to be completely redone.
Yeah.
And so out of the deal, I ended up with a brand new $8,000 shower that was not out of my pocket, but unfortunately for the seller, ended up having to be covered, but it all was because we found it during the inspection.
Kind of give some more insight because during the inspection, I think for the first part, you were handling business, you have your thing, your business going and that you had to tend to. And so I was here with Craig. And when I got here, the water was running. And so the water was running in the kitchen sink, in the shower upstairs, the sink upstairs, and it was just running. And then he noticed water actually dripping from the outside off the balcony, just little drips of water. Couldn't identify for maybe 15, 20 minutes where the water was coming from. Then Craig figured it out. And once he figured it out and said, okay, there's a hole in the shower pan that you can't see. And when the water gets to a certain height, it starts pouring over into that hole. And once that was discovered, boy, I tell you, that was my first time working with Craig. I was sold since then. And I use this as an example for so many people to tell them why it's important to have an inspection. And to your point, that repair, when we negotiated and asked the seller to make that change, they agreed, and it turned out to be an $8,000 repair. Now, if you didn't have that inspection, that would have been an $8,000 expense for you.
Yeah.
So
and maybe worse, right?
Favor. It could have been worse
because it was dripping from all through the house at that point. So who knows the kind of...
It would have been further damage. The more you would have used the shower, probably wouldn't have had an hour and a half shower every time, but over time, that the erosion on that hole would have got worse and worse, and the problem would have got bigger. So I think the key takeaway from there is why it's so critical to have a home inspection. Yes, it's more money out of pocket, but I think you would agree that when you're making an investment such as purchasing a home, $400, $500, $600, whatever it may cost for an inspection, it's well worth it. It's going to save you in the short and the long run.
Listen, right? Your earnest money is going to be more than that. Like, you know, the furniture you buy in the house is more than that. Like, what is $600? Don't be cheap with yourself. Just go ahead.
Just get it done. Have a peace of mind when you do it.
Have a peace of mind. That's the key.
I agree.
You know, that's not the place to cut the corners at, okay?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Now, if you need a painter that's reasonable, you let me know, okay? But
just about anybody else that can come to you because you have the real estate empire on lock.
I hope so.
You have it on lock.
Yeah, but that is true, and I will also add as the buyer in this scenario that not only is it important though for you to prioritize things like inspections, but it's also important for you to have a real estate agent that has your best interests at hand, and so and also to help you kind of think through when something like that comes up, because in this market, it can get very stressful trying to look for a house. My friends are sharing stories with me. I'm glad.
Horror stories.
Yes,
right?
And I'm really glad I grabbed this when I did.
Yeah.
But if you are someone that's in a tight market right now, just leaning into your agent is also really important, because something like this, you could also guide me on how to negotiate or what to request.
So you bring up a good point, and you had recently said something to me that I felt was, very touching. I mean, I find it very difficult to talk about myself, but you did give me some praise and I appreciated it. But you have been through the purchase and sale process. So you've been on both sides of the table a few times now. So you're definitely not a novice when it comes to buying a home. We've done that together a couple of times, and we've also worked together with you selling a home. But you did detail to me, because I know you're going through the process now up north. Congrats to you again on adding to the empire. But you did detail to me that I guess not all realtors are, everyone has their different style, I suppose. So you tell me that there's an importance in having someone that fits a style that makes sense for you. So yeah, I think that is really important. It's just, you may have to interview a couple people initially, but one of the things that's important is for you to have someone that's going to be really good at listening to what your needs are. And I will say to potential buyers, it's also really, your agent is helpful as much as you can be honest with them and direct about what it is that you really are looking for. What are your non-negotiables? Because it makes it hard for them to search if you're not clear on what you're searching for. So I do think that's the role of the buyer. But once you get your agent in place, it's important for you to lean into them, because they're dealing with hundreds of us all the time. I wish we could say hundreds.
In the course of your career, you've dealt with me probably a few different times, right? So Robin, she's here, but there were probably 5 other Robins before I came to you. And so you know what the landscape is looking like at a much deeper level than what we do as buyers. And so leaning into that is important. I think the other thing is making sure that you don't have a timid agent. If they're timid, they're not going to help you with negotiations. They're not going to be able to get your best offer out there. Right. And you don't want somebody that is, conflict avoidant, because the whole thing is just a lot of back and forth. Yeah. And I would say you come on with the gloves, so you're ready.
I try.
Yeah,
I try.
And the other thing that I've also really appreciated by doing deals with you is that you never hit me with like frivolous stuff. It was only the key things. Like once you had done so many behind the scenes interactions, it seemed like with especially with this particular purchase and that agent, because I think that agent was a newer agent as well.
So it was a lot of
back and forth.
Communication, back and forth, negotiation, back and forth.
I didn't know anything about it, until you literally had something like in writing or something that you needed my approval for. And so that saved me a lot of stress and time because you were managing the process.
I think the key for me, or I guess my strategy on the back end, is to, if there's a problem, find one or two solutions that would make sense. And again, this is just based on me understanding what works for you as a particular client. So find one or two solutions, get the process to that point, and then bring it to you and say, hey, remember, this is the problem that came up, or here's what we have. Here are the solutions, or here are the options that we have. Do any of them make sense? If not, we cut. If one of them makes sense, then let's push forward and make that work. So
yeah, and I'll just share this. Two things. Like, one is you want an agent that's like confident in the practice that they are in, and then two, you want them to be as proactive as possible with as you're going through the process. And I've heard this from friends and just people in general. With a lot of the technology tools that are coming out around like kind of these bigger companies that have the apps and you can like let yourself into a home and check it out and put an offer in, and people just kind of broker the deal sort of casually. Buying a home is not casual, so you cannot just do that through an app. I mean, you can, but I don't recommend it. And the reason why is because it'll probably take you much longer to get to the closing table. It's going to be a lot more headache on your side because what we're talking about, with things like inspections and all kinds of stuff, there's no one there in the same way to deal with it. And so I hear people say like, well, I don't have to give up this 3%. I don't want to give up the 3%. I can manage it myself, or I can go with a company that's cheaper, whatever the excuse or reason is. But the reality is that having a person who is expert, who knows your area too, that's another thing, and really can go work on your behalf, that's priceless. Like, I would pay more than the commission.
Listen,
for that.
And not to, again, as a real estate professional, as a realtor, I do agree. I think that there's a vital importance that you get with having someone such as myself assist you through either the purchase or the sale of a property. But I think in your case, it's great to hear that, because you have so much experience on either side of the table. Like, I always joke with you and say, well, you're a real estate mogul yourself. Like, I'm here to learn from you. But so it's good to hear that, man. And I definitely appreciate all the opportunities to assist you through the process, and definitely know that there will be more, because I know you can't sit still for too long.
No.
And I'm here anytime you need me. So
exactly.
Again, the importance of having a good realtor, you touched on that. I think that was some great points. And then of course the importance of having a home inspection. Yeah. It's not mandatory in the state of Georgia, but I think both of us can agree that when it comes to buying a property, you make that a mandatory thing, right?
Absolutely.
My girl Robin.
Yes.
Appreciate you as always. So before we end, I think just based on you're a business owner, you're doing a lot of great things out here in the world of education. Do you want to just tell us a quick bit about what your business is, and just tell the folks where they can find you if they ever need your services?
Sure. Yeah, I am the CEO of Candor & Co. Consulting here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I consult mostly with funders and nonprofit leaders who need strategy consulting and thinking about ways to improve their grant-making strategies for their organization. So I can be reached at my Instagram, I think that's best, or on LinkedIn. So it's Robin M. Tedder, that's my Instagram handle. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me at Robin Tedder.
And we'll have all that little information down here somewhere.
Yeah.
Editing side of things. But you hear what she said, CEO, big business, big boss. Again, come here. Water with 2 pieces of ice.
Oh my God.
It's 100 degrees outside. The ice melted before the water got poured in here. So anyway, I'm just gonna say that I love Robin the same way, but she bakes not even a cake. She knew I was coming from a week ago. Not even a cupcake she made that for me. Alright, and then I guess I'm supposed to tell you to subscribe and share and like and all them kind of good stuff. So if you feel the need, do that. But most important, if you ever need any help purchasing or selling here in the Atlanta metro area, feel free to give me a buzz. All right.